Okay, we're ready to get started today. This is the Board of Finance meeting for November 27th. My name is Bob Senemy. I'm sitting in on behalf of the mayor today, and we've got the other board members all present today, full 5 members. First item for the board's consideration would be the approval of the minutes from the prior meeting, which everybody has in front of them in their packet. Is there any questions on the minutes from the last meeting?
Is this, I don't have a packet. I just have the TIF report.
Oh, you didn't, here's an extra.
I'm sorry, I know usually I have my tablet. I'm sorry. It's just been that kind of day.
In the meantime, I move approval of the minutes.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So that approves the minutes from the prior meeting. Next up, we have the nomination for the vice president for the board. Janelle, are you presenting that one?
Yes, so, sorry. At the last meeting, we discussed nominating a vice president for the board. So we can open up the floors for that nomination.
I nominate Arnold Williams.
Mr. Williams, do you accept?
I'll second it.
Oh,
I accept.
okay.
Okay, so Mr. Williams will be the vice president going forward. Thank you.
That's
Oh, we've got to vote.
Yeah, now we have to take a vote on it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Third item on the agenda for today is the approval of the security transaction, so that'll be presented by Janelle.
Okay, so this is a very short report. Our purchases from October 16th through November 17th, 2023, we have total purchases of $25 million. Redemptions for the same time period, $167,180,000. And well, we only have one purchase, but just to, the reason why our purchases are low, we did have an outflow of money going out for several settlements for the city, as well as we had to pay our debt service. So we have money, about $72 million right now, sitting in reserves to cover the rest of this month. And then as we get, our inflow of money, it actually has decreased over the last couple of, probably about a month. But we're looking for it to increase because, of course, we have the semi-annual tax payments that are coming due. So you'll see additional purchases increasing in the debt portfolio, in the investment portfolio.
Any questions, comments from members of the board? Okay,
Move approval?
do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That item is approved, and then the next item on the agenda is Janelle will be presenting the status of the mark-to-market valuations. And does this require board approval or just a presentation?
Just
a
noted for the
presentation.
board,
Okay.
report submitted. This report is as of October 31st, 2023. We have a total market value, fair market value of $8,892,568 compared to the previous report of $9,191,648. On this report, the October Treasury rate was 4.88% compared to the September rate of 4.59%. And on your second page is the distribution by counterparties, Goldman Sachs and UBS. And we don't have any collateral posting for the swap agreements. And that concludes the report.
Thank you, Janelle. Any questions from members of the board on that?
Just a clarification, on that first page, you were just, the September is October.
It's just October, yes.
Okay, thank you. So next up, we have a presentation to the board for consideration of the 2024 loan authorization program. I think is that you, Janelle?
Yes, I introduce it.
Okay.
The Board of Finance is hereby requested to consider and endorse an enclosed 2024 loan authorization program totaling $250 million in general obligation bonds. The city charter requires that the Board of Finance provide recommendations to the Board of Estimates on the Mayor and City Council of Baltimore's loan authorization program. The Department of Planning administers this program and has recommended an authorization of $125 million of general obligation bonds in FY26 and for $125 million, and FY25 for $125 million, for a total of $250 million. Once the proper approvals have been obtained, this program will be placed on the November 24 general election ballot for voters' approval and to be incorporated into the city's capital budget. These authorizations shall be general obligations of the city for the payment of which the city's full faith and credit and taxing powers are irrevocably pledged. Under the current debt policy, the annual budget amount of general obligation bonds authorized is $80 million. This amount is incorporated in the current FY24-29 capital improvement plan. However, the CIP for FY25 through 2030 will reflect the recommendation of the 10-year financial plan, including up to $125 million in general obligation bonds. The Bureau of Treasury Management has engaged Public Resources Advisory Group, PRAG, to review the city's debt policy, including studying the impact of increasing the borrowing capacity above the current authorization. We expect the report to be completed in December of 2023. The Department of Finance will adjust the maximum authorization based on the results of the debt study. This request builds in flexibility to allow for the increase in the FY26 and the FY27 loan authorization. The funding categories are as follows: public infrastructure, $125 million, community and economic development, $50 million, schools, $55 million, affordable housing, $20 million, for a total CIP of $250 million. We also included in the package the Planning Commission's staff report. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to address them.
We're approving this now, but we haven't received the report from the BRAG.
From Prague. Yeah, that's correct. We actually had Prague, they're doing several scenarios for us on the amount of debt that the city will issue. We have rent scenarios on $110 million, $500 million for a couple of years. So we're looking at different scenarios. So the report should be finished in time before this is submitted to the voters for approval.
Yeah, and the idea here is,
That's not really my question. It's just, we're approving this in advance of the report.
yes.
Doesn't it make sense to have the report and then approve this?
So let me back up one step and give some context here. So as part of the city's 10-year financial plan exercise that we're going through, one of the clear needs is to get more money for capital investment. We know that. We know that we need to do that. We're trying to figure out how we do that in a kind of a prudent way that doesn't jeopardize our budget. Our thought process here is that we want to authorize up to an amount, knowing that we want to slowly phase up our GO bond borrowing over time. The debt study will help inform that. So as Janelle's saying, we're running different scenarios, but even if we go to the voters with this amount, that, we'll still have the authority to borrow less than that if we think that we can't go up to the 125.
Well, I think we're delegating our authority to this research group. The board is meant to approve the amount. And what you've done is you say that the research group will
Kristen,
make the
do you want
adjustment.
to come up?
And I don't think that's, let me start out by saying, I will understand the need for the capital money that you've got there. On the other hand, we have a policy of $80 million a year, which is stated as a policy in the last bond offering, and now we're increasing that by roughly 50%. And we're doing that without a study to make that decision. And it seems to me that we're delegating the adjustment to this research group, and I'm troubled by that.
Kristen is here from Planning Department. She could probably tell us about the timing of this.
I did just want to clarify and make a point about the timing for your understanding as you consider and debate. The authorization has to be presented to the city's delegation to the Maryland General Assembly within 30 days of the opening of the session. And that has to be done before the ordinance is written by our council, before it can go on the general election ballot in 2024. So that's the reason that the timing, that you're hearing this now. We have to get to Board of Estimates in December so that it can be presented to the General Assembly in January.
Okay, I'm sorry, actually, can I keep you for a minute? Because I just want to make sure I have those requirements in place. It has to be, they have to be presented to the General Assembly within 30 days of the beginning of the session?
Presented and approved, I believe. I can
Presented
get
and
you the
approved
exact
by
language.
who?
By the city's delegation to the General Assembly.
And when you say within 30 days of the beginning of the session, within 30 days could mean up to 30 days after it starts, which would be early February.
I will check on whether, whether
What
that
I'm just
includes
trying,
weekends.
what I'm just trying to
Yeah.
gauge is there's clearly some resistance to approving this prior to the study. When will the study be available?
So we have a planning meeting with the consultants next week, the week of December 4th. And we will go over the report, the draft report before it's finalized, to go through all the numbers.
Okay, well, what I'm just trying to get a sense of is there a reason to believe that we can't have this study for either the December or January meetings of the board, assuming that we could even potentially have a special meeting whenever in the month is needed to address the timing of the General Assembly?
And just as we're thinking about timelines, just for your awareness, it does need to go to Board of Estimates as well before it goes to General Assembly.
Which I believe we can also accommodate for something of this importance. We can have a special Board of Estimates meeting for that purpose. I'm just saying that I hear the concerns of, frankly, a majority of the board before I even weigh in. And the concerns are clear that this is putting the cart before the horse, and that the assumption that may have been made in setting up the timing of this may have not taken into account the fact that this is a significant increase to the potential borrowing authority, that the board has not been part of the discussions leading up to this. I had the opportunity to be part of the 10-year plan retreat and kickoff, and so I knew this was coming, but I think it might have been a good idea to have perhaps briefed the rest of the board before today in terms of laying out all of the background information that we have that will be in the report. But is it, I mean, what are the possibilities of having the report actually done by next month?
Next month, meaning December,
Yeah.
correct. The goal is to have the report delivered to us in December.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
So then can we just table this until December's meeting?
Can I just make one clarifying comment? The report's not going to tell us exactly what we can do. It's going to tell us, it's going to look at different scenarios, and, I mean, I've seen there's some material that's complete that they've given us in draft form, and really, what we're trying to judge is, at what level does, our borrowing level put us at risk against running into some indicators that, like, a rating agency would look at and say, oh,
Yeah.
It's pretty
right,
important.
yeah, and that's, yeah, and we
We've got a
recognize.
double A credit.
Yeah, and we recognize.
Practice of only, the policy says 80 million a year in our last OS.
Right, and I understood that's, I mean, we're very concerned about that too, which is why we're looking at it. Ultimately, you have to be able to afford it too, right? So even if you want to borrow 125 or more, that could run you into certain indicators that says, oh, that's going to make your debt compared to your assessed base a little bit higher. Ultimately, we're trying to figure out as part of the 10-year financial plan, how do we pay for the debt service? So what I would say is, even when we have this report, I think we're still going to be in a position where we're going to be asking for an up to amount to give us some flexibility that if we can make the decisions that get us to a point that we feel comfortable borrowing more than 80, that we can do it rather than losing the opportunity and staying at 80 now, and then we're stuck to do it now 3 years ahead of schedule.
Oh, I get that. I think the concern here is that the board hasn't been presented with anything in writing to justify the policy change of going up to 125 million from 80 million, which, I mean, I'll be very candid. Personally, I'm in favor of it because I've been walked through all of this. But I can definitely understand how the board members who haven't had any of that briefing or grounding might be concerned about making that vote today prior to getting that background information.
Plus the resolution says it will be adjusted not by the board, but by
Yeah.
the Department of Finance.
Right, the recommendation
You're
comes,
saying the Department of Finance will make the decision, that's the way this reads.
right, the Director of Finance make the recommendation to the Board of Finance, what the maximum
The
amount.
decision has to be here.
Right,
For
it
the
could-
maximum amount.
Maximum.
Their issue,
With the maximum part.
yeah, that's the expectation, is that it's, what we're delegating to the Department of Finance is the ability to spend less.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We still have no material on what
Yeah.
the upper limit is. I mean, I'm gonna, and Janelle will remember this. About 5 years ago, we did a study.
You should turn on one of the microphones, because we are being, sent out over the airwaves, I
I don't
think.
think anything we said
Okay.
recorded.
Janelle will recall that, is it on?
That's on.
Okay. Janelle will recall that we did a study comparing Baltimore to our so-called sister cities, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Cleveland, and Detroit, all of which have, one time or another, hovered around bankruptcy. And the question we had asked at that point in time was, why were we different? And one of the answers that came back is the city had constructed a very rigorous process for bond issuance. I had that from a historical perspective.
What would the timeline be for us if we needed to do I guess, if there's not comfort from the board at doing this without seeing some data, what would the schedule need to look like, Kristen? Because we would have to come back and approve something. And again, it's likely to be similar to this, but at least with some context with the data that we're looking at in the report. Where would that put us if we came back and did like a quick special session with that? What would be the,
I think.
thinking the board?
So the language, Sarah sent me the language, the action must be presented to and approved by a majority of the members of the General Assembly representing Baltimore City no later than the 30th day of the regular session immediately preceding the submission to the voters. So typically, we try to go to them in early January to give at least a week or two if there are questions that we need to go back.
The 30th day of the regular session isn't until like February 8th or 9th?
Correct, but typically, we may go twice, or we may go and present and then come back with questions, and they'll take an action in a week or two. So I think we would be well-served if we aimed for mid-January at the latest to get to Annapolis. But if,
we have a Board of Finance meeting on the 18th of December.
Is it the 18th? What is?
That's what, I mean.
Right, it's that Monday.
Yeah, because our normal day would be Christmas.
Well, that's right.
So we've come,
Right.
so we're doing a little early. But if we're able to have the study to us ahead of that meeting and take this up on the 18th, we could, there's a Board of Estimates meeting on the 20th of December. So we could just walk it on to the board. That if it would be asking too much to have it go to the first board meeting in January, which would be the 6th? The 3rd?
Do you say go to the council?
No, the 10th.
You have to go to council also, as well.
the council typically happens after the General
Oh, yeah,
Assembly.
yeah, yeah.
Although
Okay.
we may write the resolutions to present to the General Assembly. But I think that should work, either the last BOE of December or 1st of January.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Can we just table this then until the 18th and come back
Yeah, I
with the report?
That makes sense, to defer it for the next, until the next one, and I think in the follow-up would be either a final report or in lieu of that, sharing some of the data that we've looked at in draft form, just in
Sure.
terms of like what that does
But
to us.
I don't think anybody on this board is going to be opposed to what you recommend.
Right.
But I think
Should see
the
it.
members ought to
Yeah.
understand
It's a fiduciary thing.
what is driving that decision.
Okay, so we'll defer that one until the December meeting. Okay, thank you for that one. And then the final item is the presentation of the annual tax increment report. So Janelle, that's you.
Yes, so in April of 2023, the board approved a resolution requiring the Department of Finance submit a data status report memorandum to the Board of Finance in November of each fiscal year starting in 2023. The report period covered will be the previous fiscal year ending June 30th of the year of the report. The memorandum will support the city's ongoing goals of transparency, communication, and public interest-based projects invested in the city. Attaches the first report submitted to comply with the new mandated requirements, and it covers the following districts: Belvedere Square, Harborview, Strathdale Manor, Clipper Mill, North Locust Point, Mondawmin Mall, East Baltimore Research Park, Harbor Point, Poppleton, and Port Covington. MuniCap is still working on the information for item 3 in the resolution, which requires that the report provides a comprehensive overview assessing how ongoing TIFs projects are creating positive revenue to the city, and take into consideration the cost of the public services provided to the new development, and the tax increments that will be required to repay the bonds. So we did have a conversation with Controller about the additional information and the points of contact that we need to reach out to, and MuniCap has made those contacts to the various departments in the city of Baltimore and are now compiling the information, so the item 3 is not a part of this report.
If I could, I'm not sure I really understand what this is presenting. With these tests, there's a base year, and that goes in the general revenue fund.
That's correct.
And then the incremental amount, and that goes to amortize the debt. So I guess my question is, how often is there a reassessment to get the amount that you say has been collected?
It's annual,
Annual.
annual
So that's-
assessment.
So having said that, is there anything that has been excess that you project to go into the general fund at some point?
Well, based on, so the access, so
There is no excess at present, as I can see it.
well, a couple of them have special taxes that were
Well, that's when
paid.
there's a That's when there's a deficiency.
That's correct.
All right, so it's some, but one or two, there's a deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
In any of them, has there been an excess that's required for the debt service so that it goes into the general fund?
Yes, so East Baltimore, Research Park, the excess revenue.
And does
No,
that show in this report?
no, I'm sorry, I take that back.
No.
I'm sorry, I regress. East Baltimore, if there is available revenue, it goes to pay the 2009 D bonds, which is not part of the regular assessment of special taxes or special revenues that are paid through the debt service. So, and I believe Harbor Point,
Yes.
those have available
And that shows in
revenue.
this report?
Yes,
Well, I missed that.
yes.
It's
So if it doesn't have a special taxes, then the excess revenue will flow into the general fund.
Okay, but the special tax is when there's a deficiency.
That's correct.
So one or two, there was a deficiency that is being charged to the owners.
That's correct.
Or also the question that we brought up when the resolution was passed, are there any that are in default in their taxes?
No,
They're all current,
that's correct.
what this shows.
That's correct.
Good.
So Janelle, since MuniCap is here, it would be good just to have a quick summary of what we're looking at. One of the things I thought could enhance the report was what I'm gonna say, a one-page grid.
Yes, and we talked about that we was going to insert
Okay.
that in the report to summarize most of the big data into that one report, and then this will be the detail
Okay.
that backs up those.
Yeah, because I thought it was good information that was being provided. I didn't think the average person would understand it. They would lose track when they got past the second deal. So the one pager, I think, would give everybody what they're looking for, and which I think shows that it's working. And I don't think we should be ashamed to say that in summary form. The one thing I was concerned about was what I know is public information, but a taxpayer would think is private to them, were the names of the individuals who own the various residents. If anybody is like me, they would look through it to see who they know and the particular information, which I believe we could do it in summary schedules that would not be as invasive if this is going to be a public report.
So we could
I think that's a very good
just
suggestion.
redact the names and just list the property addresses.
Yeah. You know, I read, because I've been around a long time, and remember all of these. And I read through it in some detail. And this is a wonderful effort, and many thanks to the controller for suggesting it. It's a really good idea. What it doesn't do, and I don't know how we would put it in here, is we clearly know that a couple of these projects are not going well. At the least, the Sun papers will keep us informed. If you read through here, everything appears 100% hunky-dory. All the rules of the TIF are being observed, but is there any way to flag which projects in here are are not going well, apart from they're paying special taxes?
While I appreciate the goal or the intention, my concern would be that would call for subjective analysis.
All right. Fair enough.
And this was intended to just be
No, I know
an
exactly,
objective
I know exactly
report.
what you intended, and this
Yeah.
does it. It's a wonderful.
What you've done, though, is you've created a great project for the Baltimore Business Journal or the Banner or the Sun or the Brew or any of those publications to take this report and then
Analyze it.
analyze it and point out for the
What I don't
public.
understand, if one or two are in, apart from the special taxes, why does it not show up in this report when it shows all the taxes due have been paid?
Yes.
Which I think is surprising.
So, so the developers, they are responsible for paying the taxes, and they
Yes.
have
So
complied.
those are the ones you're listing as special taxes.
Yes.
All
Yes,
right, so everyone, all the others are doing all right, is the point you're saying. There
yes,
are one or two that were special taxes.
that's correct. And they paid their regular tax bill, property tax bill, as well as
So
the
it's all
special
All
taxes.
current.
They're all current.
And actually, before we leave this topic, as much as I appreciate your desire to make this feel less intrusive for the property owners, given that the property ownership is a matter of public record, and anyone with this public report can just sit down at the computer and go to the SSTAT website
That is true.
and punch in the address and see who the owner is, I'm afraid that us redacting that information would look like we are trying to make that information harder for people to
Not
find.
only that, isn't the city being sued by the Able Foundation for some disclosure? I read that somewhere.
Statistically speaking, probably.
Yeah.
Well, this is.
Somebody's
the-
already
this is
suing
the-
somebody,
This is
so
the
it's-
exact issue. The Able Foundation, I read probably in the Banner, is suing to get this information, so they would likely.
Yeah, I would discourage the effort to redact information unless there is a legal requirement for us to do so, which is something we already deal with the law department with regularly for Board of Estimates materials in terms of what we put on the web for people to have full access to. If the information is already clearly public, I think it's a bad look for us to redact it.
So when I looked at this, I looked at it as a draft and not a report. So I would not use redaction as defining what the schedule should look like.
You're saying
And
we can
it-
just not include ownership?
Correct, because the real purpose was to address the property assessment. And because if you're listing each of the owners, on one hand, it may be all well and good, but when you then start equating assessed value to an identity, even though you can look it up, I think the report begins to address items that really isn't serving any purpose.
Unless
For-
that is the purpose, is to see that the same person, for example, or the same entity owns multiple properties in a district, and you wouldn't know that if you didn't show the ownership. And the fact that multiple properties are owned by the same owner, which may not be an individual name, it just may be an LLC or something like that, but that may be something that is of interest. And part of the point of doing this is to gather as much of the information about these TIF districts as possible in one place to make it easier for people to do analysis in the future. And I mean, this is not a hill I'm going to die on. If people don't want to do it, then we don't do it. But I think part of the point is if the ownership information is already publicly available and it's clearly not a problem to include the ownership in the tables of what we're doing, I think it's a good thing to have that information available to anybody who's doing this kind of analysis. But that's just that's an individual
Well, one
opinion.
other point, since it was prepared pursuant to that resolution and is now submitted to the Board of Finance, I assume it may be to some extent a public document.
There is that. That is true, but the useful, the maximizing the usefulness of this going forward will be putting it online and making it searchable and accessible. And so even if we do treat this as a draft and have the permanent version slightly altered, it would be the permanent version that would be made more accessible. If somebody wanted to go through the trouble of putting in a MPIA request for this version, they could get all that same information by going to SDAT.
I'm not going to get into an argument either.
Yeah.
It's,
Can I ask a question about the report, or, and maybe this is a question for you, Janelle, or for Municap. When I read this morning, and I was kind of looking, really zeroing in on the section I and J for everyone, like how much are we getting in property tax versus how much we pay in debt service? And what I was reading was, yes, for some of these projects, the real property taxes alone exceed the debt service, which makes me think like that was probably, it's working or it's
Yeah.
delivering more. The ones where there are special taxes doesn't necessarily mean it's failed, but it means that the mechanism has worked to collect and it's being collected. But one thing I was confused about, and maybe this is because this is a more current project, like Harbor Point, for example, on page 26, the sum of the property taxes and special tax still is lower than the sum of all the debt service that was due in '23. So on this page, there's a total of 6.8 million in property and special tax, but I was assuming this is the sum of this plus this plus this, because there's different, oh no, that's 2022 is just actual fiscal
Yeah.
year? Or is that the issuance, or is that the bonds that were issued in 2016? I was actually summing these together.
I see you. Yeah, I don't think they should be.
And I know that sometimes we use like
they're
capitalized interest.
guaranteed,
to put-
payments are guaranteed by Allied Signal. That's
I think
that's
total
when we
debt service
buried all
just
of
refers
the,
to total for
all
each
the
year.
chromium.
For each
That's
fiscal year?
that's
or
what the
for
project
each-
is.
I hope so.
For each fiscal year, or is that the issuance? Like, because there was, like for Harbor Point, I think there were different issuances.
Right, they were different. Yeah, they were issued in tranches,
Okay, that's what I meant, is it?
yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Keenan Rice. I'm
Hey,
president of
Yeah.
Unicap. So on page 26, if you're looking at table J, the year at the top is the year the bonds are issued. So each series of bonds is named by the year it was issued. So
Right, okay.
these are the 2022 bond issues, which are being paid by capitalized interest. Okay.
That's what I was getting to. Is
Yeah.
that just because this amount is higher than the
Right.
revenue,
Exactly.
it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It means that they're, especially because this one's in the
Exactly.
earlier stages, we do use
Exactly.
cap. Okay.
But while I'm here, if I could just address a few of the other questions.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for your suggestion about the summary. Janelle and I were talking about that earlier and said, we really need a summary. You know, this is great for people who like to get into a lot of details, but for those who just want to understand the story.
The point I found comforting is how much the value had increased.
For some
You
of
got
them,
it, yeah, yep.
Well,
I've gotten two texts that we need to be careful to talk into the microphone because the people who are listening can't.
What I found comforting was that the assessed value was going up so much greater than the base value.
Right.
Which I thought was just very far far more than I would have anticipated.
It's a-
in a-
It's a very good
In
story.
a shorter time frame in terms of people that are skeptical about this program.
Well,
It basically, I think it indicates the program is a success.
yes.
That's the point I'm making.
And you know,
You put it in a nutshell.
In a nutshell,
I think a few things you can
I
look
mean,
at is the significant increase.
I
in
remember the
sustain-
first one we did.
Right, a long time ago, I remember as well. But you look at the significant increase in assessed value, most of these are actually producing positive tax increment to the general fund, and the summary will make it easier to
So
see
some
that.
of the money is, so the
Yes.
general fund is collecting
Yes,
some money.
yes,
That was the
exactly.
point I asked earlier.
Yes, and the summary
And
will help
I think
show
it'd be
that.
very helpful to have that in a report like this.
Well, so the information, another thing I want to mention, it specifically addresses what was in that resolution,
Yes.
including the owners. I admit I had a little bit of discomfort on homeowners as opposed to businesses, and because I just respect for privacy, but the resolution very specifically said the owners of the property, so that's why we included it. And
So
everything
it-
in here was specifically what the resolution asked for, but I don't think that means we can't provide a summary. And, you know, and I think there's several points that really show it's been a good, you know, strong program. The really significant increases in assessed value, the positive tax increment revenues, some of which are going to the general fund, the fact that none of these are in default, you know, even those that have struggled, they're still all meeting their obligations, paying debt service. And then all, these are important projects, you know, to the city that have happened. And you know, not only are producing tax revenues and increased assessed value, but, you know, they provided important housing, you know, like Strathdale. There was a critical need for housing in that neighborhood. People were camping out days ahead of time. You know, it was the first time new homes had been built in that neighborhood in like 30 years. And having, you know, as a failed project, an apartment complex that had been torn down, it's just sitting there vacant, had been vacant for many years. And to be able to provide that modern new housing at affordable income levels, those homes typically sold about $150,000 each, you know, at a level that people who could afford those homes made available, you know, new modern house. And all of these projects, you know, are providing things, you know, that people needed. And even a project like Mondawmin Mall, which is struggling because Target closed, is still, you know, when that TIF was approved, you know, the goal was to provide shopping in that neighborhood, which very much needed, you know, more retail shopping. And even without Target, there still is retail shopping there that is serving the community and it's valuable. So, you know, there's a number of real positives on this program. And I think a summary would really help bring, you know, it
And
help.
the next time, if you could put a line of the amount that's going into the general fund.
We'll do
it'd be
that.
Very helpful.
Yep.
Okay.
Let me, can I ask two questions before we get on to the macro question of a general summary?
Sure.
What happened to the bridge? The bridge was in a bond. I never recall it coming back. This is Harbor Point.
Yes.
And then
It went to the next bond
subsequently
issue.
issued a bond to
Yeah.
construct the bridge.
Yeah, because there were, just the timing, the permitting process was lengthy. So the developer ended up, and they had cost overruns on the plaza. And so they ended up taking, I believe there was $4 million for the bridge in an
There
earlier
was an
bond.
additional 4 for the bridge. The original bridge was 6, and it
Yeah.
was done for 10.
Yeah, so that was put into the next bond issue, the
Yes,
10
that's what I
million.
meant.
And the 4 million for the bridge in the initial bond issue was used for the plaza, the cost overruns on the plaza, and then the bridge was funded in the next bond issue.
Okay. And you're still working, I realize this is a very difficult thing to quantify, but you're still attempting to work on the benefits to the city in terms of employment?
Yes, we are. Now, you may recall for every TIF, when it's approved, we prepare a fiscal impact analysis. That's one of the tests of the city. In fact, just as a reminder, there's 4 key tests for TIF. What's the financial gap? You know, the developer, you're not going to provide more money than they need.
Yeah.
The point of a TIF is not to provide an extraordinary profit to the developer. It's to provide the bare minimum necessary to make the project feasible. Second, will the tax increment revenues, what will they pay with 125% debt service coverage? Third, what are the costs that qualify under the law, which are only public improvements? No money goes to private development. It's only public improvements. And then fourth, can the city afford to give up those tax increment revenues and still cover your cost of services and, in fact, have a positive impact? So for every TIF, you know, we do a very thorough analysis, which includes a fiscal impact analysis. So now we're going back and updating those. Updating 10 fiscal impact analyses is a lot of work. So we're in the midst of doing that, but
Okay.
that will be
Now,
available
excuse
soon.
me, are you Municap or who?
I'm the president of Unicap,
Oh,
yes.
you're the Municap.
You've been the Unicap man forever.
Well, since the TIF
We
program
haven't met
started.
before.
Yes, so we're the city's financial advisor
No,
for
I
TIF.
understand. I
Yeah.
read your report the last time around, and I just
Okay.
didn't realize, you seemed so authoritative that I was sure you must
Thank
be
you.
Unicap.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question? One other question. When it's list real property taxes, is that gross property taxes or is that net of tax credits? Because I know some of the properties, when they get developed, do get tax credits, which would, change the picture a little bit, so.
It's net of tax credits.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
It is the total, it's not the tax increment, because again, what was requested, in the resolution was total real property taxes. So
Yeah,
it's total
okay.
real property taxes, but it is net of any tax
Okay,
credits.
that's good, because that's really the more conservative number
I
of.
thought most of the tax credits, which tax credits are allowed to happen in a TIF district?
Well, it depends on the
I guess
property.
enterprise. I guess.
Enterprise, I
Yeah.
believe,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah,
depends.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
So actually, a TIF does not prevent any tax credit from being claimed.
Yeah.
If they have a right to claim a tax credit under law, they can still claim it. And so there are some brownfield tax credits, the enterprise zone tax credits,
And
there's,
that's factored into the analysis.
It is.
That it's not the gross, it's the net of.
it's whatever taxes they're paying.
If you were, because you're obviously exposed to this on a much broader geographic basis, how does our record look compared to the record of other municipalities? We've got to be better than Harrisburg, that much I know.
It actually is very good. The city, and I think a lot of it goes to the thought of the Board of Finance and the city's policy and program of having a Board of Finance watch over the city's financial matters. So the Board of Finance adopted a TIF policy before it ever did a single TIF, and it's a very thoughtful, thorough TIF policy. And you do not approve a TIF without every aspect of that policy being applied with. And I've learned by experience, you're not a rubber stamp, okay? We have to come to you, we have to do the analysis, and you ask the hard questions. And so all of these TIFs, they comply with the policy, they go through a rigorous analysis, they're all subject to your review and the questions you ask, and you've sent us back, told us to come back again a second time, just as you did earlier. I've had that treatment myself before. So, the result of what I think is a very thorough and disciplined approach to TIFs has worked in what I think is a very successful TIF program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I have to say, I appreciate this has worked out pretty much what we were hoping for. Still looking for the remaining information and the summary chart, but I think that this is going to accommodate a lot of the people who had questions about this and haven't known where to go to get that information. So thank you.
Very good.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
I want to second that. I really appreciate the information in this form because even for somebody that works in the department, trying to gather all this is, without this kind of summary is complicated. I mean, I can get the answers, but for somebody, the average citizen, they can't see this, so.
Well, the
this is
controller
great.
deserves the praise.
Yeah, thank you for.
Well,
doing
and
this.
just to be fair for, I guess I'm just asking everybody who's here today and watching online, don't tell Councilwoman Ramos that this is what she's getting for Christmas.
I would like to say I think it was a very good idea. We had talked for years that something like this, a comprehensive review of all the TIFs in one document would be very helpful. It was an excellent idea.
Great report.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's no other topics, any other business for the board, Janelle, or any other questions, comments?
There is none.
Okay, meeting is adjourned, and we'll return on, is it December the 18th? Next meeting, December 18th,
Somewhere about.
Thank you.
somewhere around there. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you.